But I also want to engage some of the questions that we're getting from chat. I'm not sure if this is organic or not. I find it interesting because I don't get a lot of people who watch this show who have such a different view on crime from mine or how to deal with it. But I'm just going to read out this question because I want you to respond to it. Chesa lost because letting everyone out of jail causes more crimes. It's directly correlated, and the left needs to learn it, and that you're not racist for thinking it.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily racist to think it, but it's really disconnected from empirical evidence. And it certainly is part of what has exacerbated racial disparities in the criminal legal system. But, putting aside race for a minute, let's just look at the data and the facts. During the time I was in office, it was about 2.5 years, there were 34,000 fewer reported crimes in San Francisco, according to police data, than in the exact same number of days prior to my administration. That means that there was a 20% decline in crime. Both violent and property crime fell by approximately 20% during the 2.5 years I was in office. What we proved was, in fact, the direct opposite of what that question suggests. We proved that you can safely decarcerate and that you can decarcerate in a way that creates a virtuous cycle. There is massive amounts of research showing that incarcerating people for low-level nonviolent crimes actually is criminogenic. In other words, it actually creates future crime. And that finding alternatives, things that address root causes of crime, things like mental health treatment, like parental diversion, a program that I created in San Francisco, those kinds of programs that address people's real life needs rather than imposing short, arbitrary periods of incarceration are far more effective at preventing crime. And that's exactly why we saw, one of the reasons why we saw a 20% decline in crime during my administration.
And another critique I wanted to share with you for you to respond to is the claim someone wrote, the San Francisco Asian community, the person says, I'm not Asian, was a huge driver of the recall, primarily because violent crime against them rose so much. Chesa and his office had little empathy for them. What's your response to that?
Well, let me just say, we had more empathy. It was a primary focus of my administration to find ways to support our Chinese and our Asian community. First of all, it's one of the biggest ethnic groups and language groups in San Francisco. Second of all, we were watching with horror as crimes against and targeting Asian Americans spread across the country. This is not a result of my policies or criminal justice reforms. This is something that was a direct result of white supremacy and Donald Trump encouraging and fanning the flames of anti-Asian sentiment as a scapegoat for the coronavirus and the COVID pandemic. We did more for the Chinese community in San Francisco during my 2.5 years than any district attorney in the history of San Francisco in terms of increasing language access, increasing programming, being more present, providing resources and partnerships. And if you look at the endorsements that we had opposing the recall, it showed. I was proud to receive the endorsement against the recall of San Francisco, in fact, the Bay Area's largest Chinese language media outlet, Singtao Daily. I was also proud to receive the endorsement of both Chinese American members of our Board of Supervisors, also the member of our Board of Supervisors who represents Chinatown, who happens to not be Chinese American, as well as of our Chinese American Democratic clubs and groups like the Chinese Progressive Association, the Rose Pack Democratic Club, our Chinese Community Tenants Association. We had the endorsements of all of the leadership, retired judges, all of the leadership of the Chinese community that was paying attention to the work we were actually doing on the ground and not being swayed by the fear-mongering and the scare headlines that came to dominate local news coverage.